Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, if you're not satisfied with your love or sex life, I want you to know that I get how painful it is. Sometimes it's hard to know what to do to change things up and get the results you want. But having spent 20 years as a dating and relationship coach, supporting thousands of men to have the relationships and sex they want, I know it's possible for you when you get the right kind of support. As a woman coach, I bring a unique advantage by helping you understand how women think and feel and why they say and do things that can be so frustrating for you. My specialty is being able to tell within minutes why you're losing attraction, trust, or respect from women, and how to turn that around. Even though you've likely been raised to think you should be a man who doesn't need any help, it just doesn't work that way because none of us were handed a guide to love or sex. So every month by application, I open my calendar to a few men for consultations. Men are amazed to walk away from these sessions feeling more confident in and out of the bedroom. Coaching isn't for everyone. I work with men who are willing to be honest about their role in the situations they've created. So if you're still playing the blame game, this isn't for you. But if you're ready to take action and have a love and sex life you feel great about, book a time to meet with me. Go to shanajamescoaching.com/consult and fill out the form to tell me more about you so we can set something up. That's shanajamescoaching.com/consult. Enjoy today's podcast. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James, and I'm so excited to be here today to talk about something that I've found is near and dear to many people's hearts, but especially the men I work with, and that is freedom. And we could call it true freedom or limitless freedom, or, the thing that tends to drive many people to become entrepreneurs and, freedom schedule, freedom, with money, freedom with who you choose as partners, like all of these ways that men seem to have many men, I'll say, have a strong sense of like just wanting that freedom. And I know that as we get older and commit ourselves to more and, family and business and all the things that seemed like they might be a path to freedom can somehow turn on us in a way or shrink and seem like, oh my God, now I'm trapped, or now I'm stuck, or now I'm just not as free as I used to be. So I have an amazing guest here today to support us with this, Bodhi Aldridge. Bodhi, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Shanna. Yeah, what a great introduction around this juicy topic.
Yeah, and you've been doing this for decades. We've both been in this for decades. And one of the things I want to say that I really appreciate about you as I looked at your website and just as we've been connecting is I don't feel like there are any, walls, right? To me, you feel like a man who has done a lot of deep work, and you must have, because you're in a marriage for 40 years now and you have 10 grandchildren and, you're creating a beautiful life for yourself. And I know you support a lot of men to do the same. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So help us understand what is true freedom? What is limitless freedom? How do men actually access more of that? And, what gets in the way?
Yeah, thank you. And, interesting, the sense of freedom. And if we have time, we'll talk about the masculine and feminine energy, which isn't gender-based yet. In my experience, most men I work with are more in their masculine, and most women are more in their feminine. And it's a big conversation. Yet the masculine energy in us, the deepest desire of the masculine energy is freedom, and the deepest desire of the feminine energy is connection and love. Yeah, and that's the joy and beauty of polarity. As you say, my wife and I have been together for 40 years. It's how do we keep that polarity instead of it pushing us apart? Right. How do we keep that juice in the relationship? In myself. Yeah.
Because freedom could be taken as, freedom from relationship or freedom from another human. But it seems like you're making it work, playing with freedom and that connection and love.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that freedom from, it's fascinating. Again, if we think about our cultural story in the Western world,
Yeah.
and as you know, I've studied a lot in Eastern traditions, traditional wisdom, leadership development. So on the hero's journey, the fantastic work in all mythology, Joseph Campbell, is that most young men, and this is my lived experience, is because this deep drive for freedom is in us.
Yeah.
Most young men, particularly in our 20s, we think freedom is outside of us.
Uh-huh.
So we go looking for the Holy Grail. We go surfing, we go to India, we go meditating, we go partying, we go it's somewhere out there is freedom, which is the
Somewhere
Holy
out there,
Grail.
and I'm going to find it if it kills me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for any of the listeners who may have experienced this, what happens for a lot of men is there's a point in our life when we realize, it's inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful distinction. I mean,
yeah.
I think probably, there's going to be the range, right? Some men who are like, oh yeah, I know that. But then we wonder, okay, are you living it? Right. Some men who this is going to be new to, and like, oh my gosh, the incredible possibilities open up. So this is
exactly.
already beautiful.
Yeah. And as you know, so many people, we're searching for that experience of freedom outside of us, in things, in relationships, in travel, and we're unfulfilled.
Yeah.
We're not experiencing freedom because, again, we're looking in the wrong place,
Oh my gosh. I just had this flashback to my trip to India when I was in my 20s, and the moments of recognizing like, oh fuck, I'm still here, right? That it's still me, even though I am in this amazing world looking for teachers and gurus and whatever, right? I have to deal with my own shit internally.
Yeah, exactly. And so the fundamental distinction, and I launched a podcast late last year called True Freedom, and any of the listeners, it's on, or all of the normal podcast apps. The two things is, firstly, freedom from the inside is firstly freedom from suffering. Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about the way we suffer emotionally, the way we suffer mentally, the way we suffer through attachment. Yeah. And the other is freedom is our true nature. If you think about, particularly you have a child, if you think about when your child was born, all you feel is that innocence, that love. Yeah. And the more we do the internal inquiry, we realize that we are free. Yeah. There is a sense of freedom. We, at some level, and obviously some of the listeners have external circumstances which make difficult, financial situations, relationship difficult. And I'm not saying that's not real, yet at the deepest level, we do have a level of freedom and a level of choice.
So how do you reconcile that, right? Because most people do have some degree of external situations where we don't feel free. How do you support men with that?
The first is to notice where you're holding yourself back internally, this suffering. Yeah. And so the suffering predominantly is, if you think about attachment, if you think about how you get triggered, if you think about the busyness of the mind, a big part of my work is teaching men how to be present. Yes. Yeah. Because we're so distracted. Yeah. And when we meet the external world, Shana, the three responses, we're either going to react, we're either going to distract, or we're going to repress. And any of those, create suffering. React, distract, or what was the last one? Repress. Yeah. We repress, some people repress their emotions. They collapse. Some men, collapse back into, and they don't understand the healthy masculine. They don't understand how to be present. Distraction, think about the ways we distract: phones, food, TV, partying, alcohol. Like it's, and again, I'm not judging that as good or bad. I'm just bringing awareness. If you're distracting yourself from the present moment, you're creating suffering. You're not willing to be in the present moment. And reaction, of course, we all get triggered. Yet for some men, particularly if you haven't dealt with some of the old anger, some of the old experiences, you see some angry people out there. And so the first part of true freedom is to notice what's going on here. Yeah. What are
right?
these
It's like turning
responses
that
about?
lens inward instead of looking
Yep.
for the freedom outside. What is actually happening in here?
Yeah. Yeah. And the fundamental piece is predominantly we're unwilling to avoid feeling the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that beautiful Buddhist saying, you know, the student comes to the Buddhist teacher and says, I'm really struggling. I've got all of these things going on and I don't know what to do. And the Buddhist teacher says, what is it that you're unwilling to feel?
Mm.
And that's where it starts.
Yeah.
It's that toolkit, that awareness. Emotions are just energy in motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't know anyone who's died from feeling their emotions.
I know, even though it
Yet
can
we're
feel like
so
it.
exactly the heartbreak, you know,
Yeah.
the resistance. I often say, Shana, that each day when you walk into life, when you experience your day, there are two trains that leave your house.
Mm.
Yeah, one is the resistance train, one is the flow train.
Mm. I like that.
And most of us unconsciously, remember 95% of your day is your subconscious mind,
Yeah.
we're programmed into this resistance. We resist our emotions. We resist our parenting. We resist all these different things.
Right.
And so the flow train, and flow is just presence in action.
Mm. Mm.
So when you learn to be present, yeah, then you can express that through flow. And you know, flow is closely attached to joy and to those sorts of things. So again, there's a lot to cover, but just
Yeah,
giving a
there's
few
a
anchor
lot.
points
There's
to
a lot
explore.
in there.
Yeah.
So resistance to feeling. I mean, I do know for myself and, thinking about my clients there are days just when I think about my own journey, there are days where it's like, I'm kind of in that, tense or blah, gray, whatever. And then I realize at some point I'll have a conversation with someone I really trust. And then I'll cry for a minute or two. And then I'm like, oh, that was a relief. Right. So I know that feeling of, uh, avoiding feeling and then actually feeling it. But I also know that there are many men out there who, and it's not about crying, but who haven't ever let themselves feel that or don't feel safe to feel that.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the studies around emotions and feelings is it takes 90 seconds to fully feel a feeling.
Mm.
You know, and there's some great breathing techniques that the listeners can use. So if it presents, yeah, instead of resisting, remember what we resist persists.
Right.
You know, when you resist that anger, resist, and you put the mask on and you try and push it down, and then someone cuts you off in the traffic and
Right.
you want
And
to
then
take
it
their head
just
off.
explodes. Yeah.
Exactly. And so in the moment, if you can breathe into it, yeah, and be present with it, 90 seconds usually will feel that feeling fully.
Right.
And dissipate that energy, because emotion's just energy.
Yeah.
And the deeper work for any of the listeners, any of the men who haven't really gone into some of the deeper work, one of the things is just be gentle with yourself. Like just lean in. You know, this isn't about re-traumatizing yourself. This isn't about, you know, there's some
Pushing or
great, you know,
forcing or
yeah,
I've got to get to
exactly.
the deepest
Yeah,
thing, the fastest way
exactly.
possible.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the warrior work, and there's some great warrior work for men out there, men's weekends and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's useful. Yet you've just got to, you know, in flow states, they talk about 4% a day, 4% a day, 4% a day. If you can expand
You
your
can
comfort zone
expand to
4% a
4%
day.
of flow state a day.
Exactly.
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. You know,
Reminds me of
so
good enough mothering or good enough parenting. Have you heard that? Where it's like if you're 35% attuned to your child, you're doing
yeah,
great. I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
exactly.
good. We're on track here.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I think it is be gentle with yourself, bring awareness to where you're resisting.
Yeah.
Because your external experience in life, your joy, your passion, your pleasure, yeah, what you can bring to your beloved, what you can bring to your parenting is a direct correlation of how much you're repressing and suppressing your internal world.
Mm-hmm.
You only have the external life force and joy if you've unlocked the internal repression and compression.
Yes. Okay. So how do you work with men who, they have these feelings or this sense, they sort of know something's going on, but they're not quite sure. And then, they walk into their relationship, and it's like, ooh, shame, meaning if I express this, I'm weak, or if I say this, I'm going to be seen as angry, or I'm going to express my anger and it's going to hurt people. What are some of the ways that you support men who do repress?
Yeah, exactly. And again, if we look at it through the lens of our belief systems, so one is the emotional experience and releasing the emotions. But as you know, the thought creates the feeling. Yep. And 95% of your thoughts are subconscious. So we know that our programming was all 0 to 7 years of age. The neuroscience is there, the psychologists, all of the studies, show me a boy at 7, I'll show you the man at 40.
Yeah.
Who hasn't done the work or started to do the work.
Yeah.
And so when we meet the anger, for example, we walk home, we get triggered, kids are cranky and you've had a tough day at work. Yeah. Every time you get triggered, remember, all you're doing is we give meaning to the external world. The kids are just being the kids.
Yeah.
Your beloved's just being your beloved.
Yeah.
But you give it a meaning through your filters, through your thoughts. And the fundamental belief to shift, Shana, and this is a game changer, was a game changer for me, is the fundamental belief with every human being I've met. And I've worked with CEOs of $6 billion companies. I've worked with elite sports people, and I've worked with the local 16-year-old youths.
Yeah.
Is I'm not good enough because I'm not lovable and valuable.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. And
so to answer your question, when I work with men, we change that belief because it's not true.
Right. No,
it's a story we set up through our conditioning, every human being. It's not good or bad, but most of us in our childhood, we gathered evidence that we weren't valuable, that we weren't lovable, that we weren't good enough. We had to be better. We had to improve. And again, not criticizing our parenting or our caregivers. It's the Western, certainly human experience.
Yeah.
So if you change that fundamental belief, and obviously there are other beliefs that may pop up, and you're willing to feel your feelings, you'll start to reduce the suffering.
Yeah.
You start to experience the life force of true freedom, the joy, the passion, the gratitude, the incredible life that so many of us have available to us.
Right. I think about how in those moments, if you're not beating yourself up or thinking you're not good enough, you don't start let's call it the domino effect of, now I need to prove something. Now I need to defend something. Now I'm looking at this interaction and thinking that somebody's, making me wrong because I'm already making myself wrong. There's so much that starts to mellow or relax when we can actually be present instead of adding meaning to it.
Exactly. And the shortcut is every time you get triggered, every time you get defensive, every time you get judgmental, it is always the not good enough. Somewhere.
Like we don't even have to go anywhere else. We can just go right there.
Just go right there. Just go right there. Somewhere the meaning you've given it is, I'm not good enough. I'm not valuable and lovable. If you loved me, you would have done it differently. If you valued me, this is the internal story. And so you shift that fundamental operating context.
Yeah.
And it has a domino effect in the opposite way. As you say, that domino, it's like it starts to release. Yeah. And so you just reminded me as well, one of the key things, I was working with a group of men recently, and one of them was saying he's got like an 8-year-old daughter and he's got a pretty high pressure job. And he was saying, I used to go home on the weekends and I used to just find that it was filled with chores and stuff and the kids, and all I wanted to do was, switch off.
Hide.
And hide, exactly, And one of the things I teach is, so a lot of people talk about do what brings you joy. What I say is bring joy to what you do.
Oh, I like that.
And it's transformed his weekends. He said, I've never been more present with my daughter, had so much fun. I realized I was resisting. I had this whole story, and instead I went, just bring joy to it.
Wow. Just
move towards it, So, and again, I know this sounds simple and there's work to do, yet fundamentally it can be.
Well, right. It's that whole, it's simple. It's just not necessarily easy because we have to unlearn all of those habits and patterns.
Yeah. And that's why working with men, when I work with men, I do one-on-one work with men, and I also do group work, because in traditional cultures, men learn from other men.
Yes.
Yeah. And I do online programs, leaders around the globe, and typically they might own their own business. They might be a builder, a mechanic, an architect. But when we witness each other and feel held by other men, to your point earlier, I don't think men are unwilling to be vulnerable. I think men need to feel safe to be vulnerable.
Yeah, agreed.
That's the key.
I mean, that's, I did a TEDx talk about it was called What a Thousand Men's Tears Reveal, about the crisis between men and women. And I see the value and the importance, right, of both men being with men, and then also men being with, we can say, women or people of other genders.
Yeah.
That there has to be, I believe, safety created everywhere, right, in all of these relationships. And some men come to me to do the work because it doesn't yet feel safe with men. Other men go work with men first, and then they come and they're like, okay, now I feel safe with men, but I still don't feel safe with women, right? So it feels like there's, there are so many layers of this. And I'm curious, because one of the things that I would say I attempt to support men with is how to create safety for themselves, right? Or what does it take to feel safe in the midst of relating with other people? So I'm curious about your take on that.
Yeah, exactly. And, when I work with organizations, we know the studies around culture, the most successful cultures have what has been labeled psychological safety. Yeah. And I talk about psychological and emotional safety. Yeah. And so in teams, in leadership teams, as a leader, yet it starts with self, as you say. Yeah. And if you really reflect with it, if you really get present and you think about emotional and psychological safety, you are safe.
For the most part, right? I mean, there are situations where people are abusive or
yeah, exactly. But from the inside, now externally, absolutely, abusive relationships or incarceration, those sorts of things may be different. But fundamentally, you get to choose your feelings.
Yeah.
You get to choose your thoughts.
Yeah.
And as you said, simple, not easy. And so the first piece is for men to, as they start to do the internal inquiry, to realize that at the deepest level, you are safe. Again, if the external circumstances, there's no physical threat, those sorts of things.
Right.
And so when you realize that, and again, this is where true freedom lives, you realize so much of my feeling of unsafe is made up by me.
Right.
It's made up by my past conditioning, my thoughts, my not good enough, my inability to feel my feelings. And you start to unlock that and realize, safety and intimacy and vulnerability start with me. Yeah, I've got to be vulnerable with myself. I've got to be intimate with myself.
Yes.
One of the key practices that I give men is, if you can start to cultivate, even if it's 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, a reflection time and a deeper relationship with yourself. Yeah. Start to love yourself. Start to be gentle with yourself. Start to be compassionate. And often that just starts with noticing.
Yeah.
Just notice.
I love the noticing practice, because you don't have to, and I give this to couples too. You don't have to know why. You don't have to, right? There's nothing else you have to do except, oh, my stomach clenched, or wow, I'm feeling this weight in my chest, or right. And the joke I often make is it goes over a lot better to be like, ooh, my stomach just clenched, versus you're being an asshole, right? And attacking someone outwardly.
Exactly.
That noticing is just, it's priceless.
Exactly. And that's why, I have some simple yet foundational practices about getting present.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. And so they're based on traditional wisdom, and 10 minutes a day. Yeah. And there's only 4 or 5 practices you can do where when you get present, as you start to notice.
Yes.
When you start to notice, you start to notice your thoughts. And go, there's that. I'm beating myself up, the inner critic or the not good enough. It's like, whoa, boy. Yeah. You've no doubt had it. I've had clients say to me, if I had a friend who came to lunch every day and spoke and to me the way I talk to myself, I'd be like, don't come back tomorrow,
Yeah.
And our thinking mind. So we have about 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are negative. So one of the powers of presence is, if you think about a very fast train, yeah, the way to slow down a very fast train is not to jump in front of it.
Brilliant. Yep.
What I say to my clients is, we just got to slow this thinking mind down.
Yes.
We just got to start gently getting a bit more present, doing a bit more reflection. It's not suddenly I'm going to be cross-legged looking at the wall, doing Vipassana for 10 days, like meditation retreats and things like that. It's like, let's just start slowing it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those of us, right, who are, a little bit crazy will jump in and be like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. The high achievers. Yeah.
But it can work both ways. And like you said, it can be powerful to jump into a warrior weekend or a Vipassana meditation. And that alone is not going to change everything, right? Because the habits are so conditioned.
Yeah, exactly. The Hindu saying is, our thinking mind is a fantastic servant. It's a terrible master.
Right. And even to realize, oh, I have a thinking mind. My thinking mind is not me. It's such a different relationship with reality.
Yeah. And for any of the listeners, the men, if you want to create more juice and passion in your relationship, to be present with your beloved, if you're in a heteronormal relationship, you can't be there distracted with all your thoughts, thinking about work, thinking about the football. Like, you've got to realize the most attractive thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Shana, for the feminine is a man who's present and on purpose.
Mm-hmm. And present, I would say present on purpose. And then through that, I can feel like, right, the love and the love
passion
and the
is
care
the one.
and the passion
Is the third one that I add. Yeah, exactly. The passion for life, the passion for my parent, the passion for my beloved, passion for myself. Yeah, absolutely. And
presence, purpose,
again,
passion,
I think, they're the three stools of the three legs of the stool, I think. And there's layers to it. So, with our busy minds, with this distraction, one of the biggest things when I work with couples, often I start working with men, and sometimes I do work with couples. A lot of the women, the first thing they tell me is, can you just get him off his phone?
That's what my mom says about my dad. She's like, he's on his phone all the time.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting resistance or avoidance, right? I mean, I can see in their dynamic, they've got a thing where he's safer in there than he is out there. So, then it's like, okay, what's creating all those dynamics?
Exactly. It's a form of distraction. And the back to the safety piece. So one of the deepest fears of the masculine is the sense of humiliation.
Yeah.
And obviously that's linked to not good enough. The reason the masculine struggles to be fully open and safe with their beloved, is that sometimes they take feedback as humiliation, criticism. I'm not as good as, I can't do that. I couldn't, you know what I mean? Whether it's providing money or fixing the car or, whatever story you've got. Yeah. And that's why men are so scared.
The freedom. Oh, yes. One of the doorways to ultimate freedom, when you don't take it personally and you actually then can connect and collaborate. It's huge.
Yeah. Because we've all been humiliated as little boys.
Yeah.
The culture of, the culture of bullying, the culture of hazing, the culture of, fitting into a group, and again, consciously or unconsciously, it's such a deep fear for us.
Yeah.
I want to be accepted. I want to have safety and security in this group. Yeah. And a lot of us, have given ourselves away trying to fit in because, and so scared that if I get it wrong, they're going to cut me out of the group.
Yes. And, when I think about in the work that I've done with women and supporting women to not shame, blame, humiliate, attack, right? There's also the work that I do with men around, okay, well, if that happens, right? How do you lovingly set a boundary, or how do you stand up for yourself? How do you have that sense of sovereignty that also comes through love? So again, it's like whatever doorway we have into the parts of us that are triggered or the parts of us that feel resistant, there's always this opportunity, like you said, to notice and to grow that way.
Exactly. And it's about sincere honesty with yourself. It's about really in that noticing, in that self relationship, it's going, I got triggered by my beloved. It's actually my stuff.
Yeah.
Now, in the moment, that's tricky. you know, particularly if you feel attacked or you feel judged or humiliated. Yes. But if you can get the reflection, if you can do some work with a therapist or a coach or a community of men, you'll start to see, oh, my wife, you know, because the feminine, and I'll talk a little bit about it, you know, my wife was just being herself.
Yeah.
But I took it personally, as you say.
Right. Yeah. And it's not to say I don't want to let women off the hook or people of other genders off the hook, to say, you know, there are things that we can all learn about communicating and doing it with love and not attacking, shaming, all of that. And no matter what's happening out there, there's still that internal piece.
Exactly. And the wiring, you know, again, we haven't spent a lot of time around the masculine and feminine, the distinctions there, yet fundamentally, again, the feminine in us and in a lot of women, the key driver is connection and love, connection and love, connection and love. And when I work with the men, what I tell them is that, and correct me if your experience is different, Shana, is that in 15 minutes, I've had the experience where my beloved is it okay if I swear?
Yeah, totally.
It's like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I effing hate you, I effing hate you, I love you, I love you, I effing hate you. It's the internal experience for her of feeling connected or not feeling connected.
Right.
It's actually not about me, but
it's not about you. It's about, am I feeling connected? Am I not? Am I feeling seen and felt, understood or not? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's constant. That's the flow. The feminine energy is everything that flows and moves. Yeah. And so what I teach the men is, don't take it personally. But if you can presence that, your little boy doesn't get triggered. Yeah. You can hold a space of love and compassion. Yeah. She'll feel safe.
Yeah.
She'll feel safe to reveal herself. She'll feel safe to express herself. And again, not unhygienic behavior, but just that natural expression of the feminine. It's looking for connection in every moment.
Right. And if you can be present in that way, you can invite her into her deeper self as well. Whereas if you're not present, then you explode, collapse, whatever, and then downward spiral.
Exactly. And what happens for us is our little boys get triggered.
Yeah.
And then we react, we distract, or we repress.
Yes.
Yep. So we'll either, some of us will get angry back. Some of us will just get out of there, distract ourselves. And some of us, you may have had this experience, which can be really triggering for the feminine, is we just collapse in that moment. It's like, where are you? The feminine feels abandoned. It's like, where have you gone?
Yeah.
You know, and again, they're all defense mechanisms out of our not good enough. Yeah. Yet they're not true. You can be present, hold the feminine. Yeah. You know, the feminine is everything that flows, and the masculine is that which presences the feminine. Mm-hmm. So it's the river and the riverbanks.
Any support for men on that internal dynamic, right? Having the feminine and masculine, how they could use their own internal feminine and masculine to support themselves?
Yep, absolutely. And again, if you think about, so the masculine energy, and again, traditional wisdom knew this in the universe, in nature, there's Mother Earth, Father Sky, you know, these are just names that have been put on it. And the feminine energy that runs through nature, as I say, is everything that flows, like the ocean. It'll be calm, it'll be wild, it'll be cool, it'll be hot. It's moving all the time. Yes. That's our feminine energy. The masculine energy is that which presents it. Yeah. And again, it's like the river and the riverbanks.
Right.
So when I work with men, what I say is your natural propensity, the masculine energy is like the scaffolding in life. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got to have that structure. We've got to have the ability to hold the space.
Upright, yes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That presence. And then if you create healthy structure, whatever that means for you, then the feminine in you is the flow. It's the collaboration. It's the nurturing. It's the connection. You know, any of the fathers there, you know, you can call on this with your children. Yep, you do have these qualities of nurturing and compassion. Yeah. And so if you can bring that, one of the interesting things, Shana, is, you know, one of the biggest challenges for men is how do I buy a gift for my beloved, like a birthday present? Because the way men shop in their masculine is very different to the way women shop in their feminine. Yeah, you would have experienced this. Yeah. So our wiring through our masculine, sometimes our distorted masculine, you know, we were trained to hunt and kill.
Right.
It's the linear, it's the strategic. I'm going into the supermarket. I need 5 things. I'm just going to get in and get out.
Yeah.
The feminine is wanting the experience of connection. Oh, look at this. That's a lovely color. You might
So
meet a neighbor.
beautiful. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, exactly. And of course, what happens is, and I've had this experience many times, you go to buy a gift for your beloved. Yeah. And if you're doing it in your masculine, yeah, it's so much tension and pressure. It's because you can't go in and go,
right. Well, then you're trying to get it right. Yeah. You can't just.
Exactly. So one of the great ways for men, when I work with men, to lean into your feminine, what I say is, if it's your beloved's birthday, create some time, go into a beautiful, often I buy, some level of jewelry or crystals or something. Open your heart and just get in the flow. And notice where your attention is. Notice what you're drawn to. Notice the color, the beauty, the feeling. See if that feels aligned with your beloved.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a really simple exercise. One, it takes the pressure of buying something for your beloved. And two is it allows you to really notice your feminine energy.
Yes.
Within
I can see the benefit, right? Both masculine. Of those.
Yeah. Fascinating though.
Yeah. This is deep and rich. And again, I appreciate your capacity, like you said, to presence and then also to flow, as we're going. Is there anything we could keep going with this for hours and days? Is there anything for today before we wrap up that you feel like if we don't hit this, you're going to feel disappointed?
I guess what I noticed, and it may be different in the US, is that two things. One is, and I work with a lot of men, as I say, early 40s to mid 50s, and on the hero's journey, that we're closest to the Holy Grail at 16 and at 45.
Interesting.
So in all mythology, anyone as a young man, anyone with teenagers, there's a point for young men around 16 when they start to ask the existential questions. What's life about? What's the meaning of life? Why am I going to college? Why do I have to get a job? Because what's happening is that part of us, that freedom, that search is close.
Wow.
And again, the whole midlife crisis, inverted commas, is mid 40s.
Yes.
Because a lot of men have we've achieved the external search for freedom. We've got the success, possessions, we've got exactly, but we're not feeling it inside.
Right.
So what I'm noticing is there's so many more men who are having this feeling, this whisper, this calling inside of them to really inquire as to what freedom means.
Yeah.
And so what I'd offer to any of those men who are listening is listen to that calling. And one of the key things, the first is, one of the best ways to get present is nature. Is to just, even if you don't want to do any work with anybody, like coach, therapist, whatever,
go into nature.
But when you go into nature, don't go for the hard adventure all the time. Don't go for the mountain climbing and the bike ride all the time. Just go into nature and just be more present. You'll start to get to notice more.
Yeah.
And then the other is, the beautiful thing of, the three men you need in your life, yourself, a close friend, and a mentor. So find a man, might be a few years older than you, might be someone in your community, might be a coach, might be a teacher, sporting, because in all traditional cultures and on the hero's journey, the first step to really finding true freedom is to find a mentor.
Right.
So that would be my encouragement for any of the men listening.
I like that. And that same, vein, that sense of listening to the calling and without making it wrong. I've often thought about, I don't know who used the terminology, but right, the instead of a midlife crisis, we can call it a midlife opportunity, or we can call it a midlife awakening, and it's so true, because it can seem like a crisis. It can seem like I've got to explode everything. But when you really get in there and you look for, as you're talking about, more, deeper meaning, more purpose, more passion and play, right? It's like a knock on the door saying, hey, there's something else here, or there's more here for you, not blow up your life.
Exactly. And it's a great point because, a lot of the men I work with start asking the purpose question. What's my purpose? What am I here for? And they think, again, it's external.
Right.
But the truth is, it's not about leaving your job, not about leaving your marriage, or, it may be transitioning out of your career. It may not.
Yeah.
But if you don't do the internal work, there's inner purpose and outer purpose and higher purpose.
Yeah.
If you don't do the inner work, you can go and build wells in Africa, but you're not going to get the sense of freedom and purpose.
Yeah.
And as you say, a lot of my clients, they end up realizing it's right here. I've got a beautiful wife. I've got a beautiful family. I've actually got a lovely business. I've just been resisting it.
Yeah.
Because I was told it's supposed to look different, or I didn't have the toolkit, So it's a great distinction.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you for the distinctions around freedom and, where it can be so easy to look externally or seem or feel like that's where the answer is, and to really guide men and people to look inward and to make it, I feel like you've made it safer in this conversation, right? Emotions, while we may fear that they are going to destroy us or they're never going to end, they're just energy in motion. And to remember that we actually can tolerate so much more, I think, than we think we can.
Yeah. One of the beautiful saying is that, the block in your life, whatever's presenting, the block isn't in the way. The block is the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whatever's presenting for you, like whether it's around your health, your marriage, your finances, your career, it's not in the way. It's giving you the information to unpack, to reflect, to do some inner work. And if you start to lean into life that way, you start to realize, there's the richness, there's the juice.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I know you have a gift for our listeners, or a course that you're offering for them. Can you tell them where to find it?
Yeah, sure. I'm just giving away a short mini course around freedom and flow. So if you just go to www.bodhialdridge.com, and then there's the mini course there, Freedom and Flow. The links will be in the show notes.
Yep, I'll put them in
and
the
also,
show notes.
Please listen to the podcast, True Freedom. It's on all of the normal apps. It's on my website as well, which is bodhialdridge.com. And also, I'm offering for some of the listeners, anyone who feels called, I'm offering a complimentary alignment call. Yeah. So if you feel called, if you're having the calling and this type of work feels and is calling you, then please, through the website, you can book in a 1-hour complimentary coaching session with me to support you to kind of just see where you're up to, get some coaching, get some support, maybe get some alignment. Because my passion, as you know, is to ignite the inherent magnificence in men. I think men are wonderful. I think they're magnificent. I think they are so important for the planet. I agree. And I just want to ignite more and more of that magnificence.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for supporting men in the way you do and supporting the planet in the way you do. Helping men wake up is a very important part of having a healthy planet and community, and also for men to actually get that, you get to be happy, you get to be fulfilled, you get to not just have to walk around as a zombie, exhausted, depleted, right? That you matter to.
My personal mantra is don't die with the music in you.
Mm-hmm.
Like any man out there, you've got music to play, you've got gifts to offer, and you can do it this lifetime.
Yeah.
And I'm here to support. You're here to support. Like, sing your song, play your note. Like, it's there. It's right there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shana.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144, or head over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.